Well, this week, California Democratic lawmakers passed a bill that could change the rules for that special election, and it would have implications for the recall election. It could be happening much sooner than we expected, even potentially as soon as mid-September. I spoke to the Speaker of the Assembly, Anthony Rendon, about it. Yeah, guys, as you mentioned, Governor Newsom defeated that recall in pretty much a landslide. Here at the Registrar of Voters office, they're still counting ballots. They want to make sure that every vote counts, but the results so far are showing us that 58% of San Diegans voted against the recall and 41% voted to recall the governor. So where does that leave the Republican Party of California? Why not wait for investigations to be complete? Because I think some people are worried that whatever happened that led to this transaction in the first place, that could be brushed under the rug.
No, that's not going to happen. A couple things.
Many of the victims are describing similar stories. 3 burglars entering the home, going to the master bedroom area, stealing jewelry boxes, safes, and cash, and then leaving the home to a getaway car that's waiting outside. I know last year, I think it was last April, the County Board of Supervisors had an advisory vote on 2 bills that the House of Representatives passed. I believe it was H.R. 8 and H.R. 1447, which would have stopped guns being transferred from someone who has a license or traded to someone who doesn't have a license. Mm-hmm. And you and Supervisor Joel Anderson voted against both of those 2 things. Obviously, that was before Uvalde. Has anything in your mind sort of changed after Uvalde? This race is going to feel very familiar to the voters in the South Bay. The incumbent candidate, Vivian Moreno, is running against the same candidate as in the 2018 election, Antonio Martinez. The 2018 election was extremely close. Moreno won with 51% of the vote. And you have some pretty bold ideas that are very different from Governor Newsom. But at the end of the day, if you were to get elected, there's still a Democratic majority in the state legislature. Does that concern you about trying to execute a lot of these ideas that you're campaigning on?
Well, it does.
Well, by declaring this public health emergency, public health officials are hoping that San Diego County might be able to get its hands on more vaccines and also more funding options to potentially combat the outbreak that we've seen globally. Is it safe to say that we underestimated the demand for the testing? You know, some people I spoke with last week said that when they went to try to make an appointment, it would take them a week to get that appointment. Yeah. And others said, hey, I'm, feeling symptoms and I don't want to stand outside for hours in a line because I don't feel well.
Yeah, but when you have, when you go from 0 to 60, you can't just immediately build out infrastructure.
Well, we're awaiting the numbers from the county to be released for today to see if that's really a growing trend or if that was sort of an outlier. Meanwhile, the CDC has released new guidance for quarantine guidelines saying that anyone who tests positive who is asymptomatic will now have to quarantine for 5 days instead of 10. And, Jessica, you're painting a very rosy picture, and I appreciate your optimism. That's what you need in a leader, of course. But the fact of the matter is Democrats still outnumber Republicans here in the state of California 2-1. Is this a critical moment that your party really needs to get it together? I mean, is there any part of the numbers that just feel as though the odds are stacked against you guys?
America's pig farmers could be facing major changes. And expensive ones very soon.
So there's a lot of pigs that are being produced for California that aren't in California but are going to be regulated by California.
But it happened because of a vote from Californians in 2018 saying pigs needed to be raised more humanely.
I've got some pork spare ribs that are done, got some briskets going to be taken out a little while, wrapping them up.
But what voters said was the necessary change could suddenly cost California restaurant owners like Bradrick Cooper. He owns Coop's West Texas Barbecue in Lemon Grove.
Some of the best meat you'll ever taste.
Like many restaurants, COVID packed a punch on his business. How are you? And despite that, he's clung on. But now he's facing a new hurdle. He's worried come January 1st, when Proposition 12 goes into effect, that he's gonna have to pay much more for pork and potentially raise his prices for his customers.
Hey, have a good one, man. Thank you. You kind of hate to have to keep raising your prices because the price of goods keep going up. But it's like, what do you do?
So how did we get there? Prop 12 passed overwhelmingly by California voters. And that means that beginning January 1st of 2022, pork can only be sold in California if it comes from a pig that gave birth in a pen that's at least 24 square feet. The National Pork Producers Council says less than 1% of pork comes from places that comply with those standards. And that means farmers across the United States could be spending hundreds of millions of dollars to build larger pens for pregnant pigs, which means they could potentially fit fewer pregnant pigs on their farms.
California consumes 15% of the pork in the United States, but most of it comes from out-of-state farms like this one in Nevada. Pork farmers say that Proposition 12, which passed in California, could dramatically change the pork industry nationwide.
Hank Combs owns Las Vegas Livestock, a pig farm outside of Las Vegas that sells 95% of its pigs to California. He says it's not just people buying pork that will face higher cost. He's worried too.
The producer's the one that's going to be out most of the cost of reconfiguring their infrastructure, reconfiguring their farms to accommodate that regulation.
He doesn't keep any pregnant pigs on his farm, but he will have to make sure the suppliers he gets his piglets from are in compliance with California's new rules.
We're going to have to find a source that is compliant with that regulation. So we need to go out and try to find a hog producer that has that meets those regulations, and that's probably going to cost me more to get those things.
But he says he's also heard from other farmers who say they might just stop selling pork to California because of the costs to get their farms in compliance. The proponents of Proposition 12 says that's their choice.
To keep a mother pig in a cage so small, she can never even turn around. That is against the will of California voters. It is against human decency. It is cruel treatment of animals. And it's no wonder why they lost in a landslide vote. And they should change their practices if they would like to supply to California.
Combs says while he knows the new rules could be tough for some pork farmers, he respects the decision of California's voters.
Personally, I think in our operation, I don't have a problem with it because we like to raise the hogs out of the way, and we always have.
Can't get no better than that.
And restaurant owners like Bradford Cooper hope that people love pork enough to keep buying it, even if the price goes up.
A lot of people love pork, a lot of people love it, and I speak for those who sell it and those who eat it. It's something that we gotta have.
And like many things today, gotta have means gotta spend a lot more. "24-year-old Zion Clark is used to the double takes and the stairs.
Because you gotta think, my arms are my arms and my legs all at the same time.
Born with caudal regression syndrome, which impairs the development of the lower body, he's gone through life without legs.
It's a very rare abnormality. That's a hard word.
He laughs about it now, but it wasn't always an easy road. Clark was in the foster system for over a decade, where he says he was physically abused, underfed, and bullied in school.
People never used to treat me with respect or even like human.
But that changed when a teacher introduced him to wrestling. He fell in love with the sport, but it wasn't an easy start.
For about 10 years, I lost consecutively over and over and over and over and over. Only reason I stayed is because I had friends.
It was friends who kept him in the gym, and through hard work, he became one of the best wrestlers in the state of Ohio.
I don't care about winning. I care about going out there and feeling accomplished and learning something new and taking something away from every match.
He was recruited to wrestle in college and then went on to become the Guinness World Record holder for the fastest 20-meter walk on two hands. Now Clark has a new dream: to become the first American to qualify for both the Olympics and Paralympics in two separate sports, wrestling and wheelchair racing.
Because I'm already at the level where I'm running with the best professionals in the world, but that's not enough. Running with them is cool, but beating them is a whole different story. And that's where I'm trying to get to this next couple of years.
Go.
Clark has been an inspiration to millions around the world, and his story has been featured in a Netflix documentary. His advice to others: live by his motto, no excuses.
And I had to just make up my mind to work hard and get stronger. And that's all it is. You have to break that mental block. You have to shatter your own glass ceilings.
Proving that nothing is impossible if you work harder than anyone else. Priya Sridhar,
Huh, yeah.
NBC 7.